So today it's an early spring day. Well, I just thought it would be a good time for me to show you some wild edibles that are growing in this area. I am in the northeastern part of the US in upstate New York. You know, there's a lot of people where maybe they don't have time. Everyone's busy these days, or maybe you don't live on a lot of land, maybe you're renting, but you still want to know what your local food sources are without having to dedicate that kind of time energy and money energy towards it. So stay tuned with me. I'm out of breath because I'm out of shape after the winter and I'm climbing uphill. So bear with me. We will go over a few of these wild edibles together. Let's see what's growing. And that's it. Welcome to True Freedom Permaculture, where I show you all the tips and tricks you need to have a green thumb, even if you weren't born with one. We are in the middle of the beautiful forest, and what do we see? Oh, that is some field garlic. Now, these are herbaceous perennials that are part of the lily family, actually. And you can identify them because they look like chives growing in the wild, so not too far off. They are part of the allium family. This is another wild edible that you should be able to identify by breaking off a leaf and looking inside of it. So, can you see this here? I will zoom in for a close-up of this if you can't. But you will be able to identify it because it has a tubular stem that is hollow inside. So let's dig some field garlic up so you can take a look at the bulb and the roots. If it is field garlic, it's going to have tiny white bulbs with white roots attached to it. Another good indicator is by smelling it. So if you have a leaf and you smell it, and it reminds you of the smell of onion and garlic, then it is field garlic. Now, field garlic is going to flower later on in the year, which in my area is more like late spring. And they will develop clusters of small pink or white flowers, and eventually these flowers turn into tiny white bulblets that really look like barley. And they won't always go into this flower stage. Sometimes they'll just go straight into the bulblet stage. Field garlic can be used in cooking whenever you would use chives. And similar to cooking with chives, usually when we use them, they tend to be raw. Because when you cook them, I think they tend to lose a lot of their flavor. And they have a really delicate flavor. It's not as strong as like a normal onion. Much, much more subtle. Now, although it's true what I just said about the delicateness of field garlic, I had so much the other day that I actually sauteed them and I put them into a lentil curry, a dal that I was making, and it was delicious. It was nice to see a little bit of color in there, and there was the slight allium flavor to it. Now, alliums are similar to mushrooms in that they have this superpower, which is the ability to absorb toxic metals from the body and also in whatever environment they are in. So I talk about that regarding mushrooms in this video, but today we're talking about how this relates to field garlic. So I would steer clear of picking field garlic when it's next to a road because that means that it has absorbed all of the lead and heavy metals from the road into itself, and you wouldn't necessarily want to eat that. So yet another reason why, especially when you're first starting out foraging, it's great to go with someone who really knows what they're doing. I think a lot of people know by now how great garlic is for you. It's a natural antibiotic, it increases circulation to the heart, it can be great for people with poor digestion too. So for some people it is irritating, but for other people it helps their digestion. So it just depends on the individual. Let's talk about our second wild edible of today, which are daylilies. How do we identify these? Well, daylilies have these light green leaves with pointed tips. They kind of look like stars to me when the shoots are coming up, and along the leaves they have parallel veins. And because they resemble some poisonous lookalikes like lilies, irises, and daffodils, the best method for verifying daylilies at this point is through their roots. You should find rhizomes at the base of the plant which connect down to these potato-looking like tubers with these tiny hairy roots. And if you dig one up and you see a single rhizome or a single bulb, you know that it's not a daylily. And again, if you don't know, do not eat it. It is just not worth it. Most parts of this flower are actually edible, but in early spring all we see are the shoots, and you can also eat the roots. But I'm not going to go over the buds and the flowers in this video because we are not seeing them yet in early spring in my area. But one way of identifying them is if you're somewhere where you pass the whole year, you can look later on in the summer for the orange flowers. And those are an indicator, again, that they are daylilies. And that way you know in the early spring, if you see these shoots in that area, then it's most likely a daylily. As a general rule of thumb, when I'm foraging for daylilies, I cut them off at the ground level. That way it has an ability to regenerate, so I'm not taking it so it can never grow there again. And I just go along, they're really easy to cut, and I take about 20% of the daylilies growing in a certain area. That way I can make sure that I'm not over foraging them. Now if you pick the shoots too late, their leaves become really tough and fibrous, aka not pleasant to eat, so it's best to pick them when they're about 6 or 7 inches or shorter. That way we can make sure that they're still tender enough. The shoots are great sauteed. You can eat them raw, but it causes some people some stomach upset, so just be careful. As always, it's a good idea just to try a little bit of something when you're first trying a new wild edible to see how your body handles it. I try to stay away from a lot of gluten in the spring, and so I made a rice noodle ramen the other day, and I sauteed some daylilies and put it in there, and it was delicious. Third wild edible that we're going to talk about today is wood sorrel. This is really fun because it looks like a shamrock and the individual leaves look like hearts. Wood sorrel has a slender stem and it's very dainty, but do not let its appearance fool you. It can grow in difficult climates, so it's a lot tougher than it looks. Because their leaves are so delicate, I prefer using them raw because when you cook them, they just kind of wilt really easily. An exception would be some people make an infusion out of them. You know, people pay a lot of money for microgreens, so why not use wood sorrel the next time you need a beautiful garnish for your dish? What's better than these little hearts on your dish? Because of its tart, lemony flavor, I think it's perfect on fish dishes. Similar to sour citrus fruit, wood sorrel is high in vitamin C. It also contains a lot of potassium and mucilage. It can be used as a diuretic and as an astringent, and it is rumored to have the ability to cleanse the blood. Have you all noticed that a common theme among the plants that are coming up in the spring is that they are plants that help cleanse the blood and cleanse the body? So we always think of spring cleaning and cleaning our cars and our houses, but also I think nature is onto the fact that it's a really opportune time to cleanse our bodies as well. So the fact that it's producing these plants during the early spring is no accident. So why not take advantage of the time of year and make the most out of these plants? I hope you enjoyed today. I learned a lot, and I always do, and it's more fun learning with you. If you'd like to go on another foraging tour with me for later in the spring, you can click on the May foraging video that's coming up on the screen now, and I will meet you over there. I'll see you soon.